You're listening to The Supreme Show with who? Me, Supreme, a.k.a. Big G, the brother with the platinum voice that'll put you to sleep. So listen, like, and subscribe. And oh, don't forget to drop a comment. Peace. Yo, what up, what up, what up, what up? It's your big brother Kareem Supreme. Want to talk about the 25-year anniversary of the Infamous Mobb Deep album. 25 years, y'all. Keep telling y'all, y'all getting old. I ain't getting old, I'm getting better. But anyway, I want to talk about the 25-year anniversary of Mobb Deep, Havoc and Prodigy's second album. A lot of so-called Mobb Deep fans don't even know that this is their second album, not their first album. But it came out on this day, April 25th, 1995. 25 years. It's the silver anniversary, y'all. Now I want to back up to 92, 93. Back with teenage hip-hop. We used to call it the teenage hip-hop scene. And you had groups like Criss Cross, Illegal, The Youngsters. Then you had individual solo rappers like Chi Ali, among others. But Criss Cross, Illegal, and The Youngsters, they stood out, you know. And Criss Cross, they were very, very popular, you know, with that jump and Warm It Up, Chris, and I Miss the Bus, songs like that. They pretty much dominated in album sales. And the Youngsters, they was the hardest out of all of them. Illegal, you know, those were some of Eric Sermon boys. They was hard too, but the Youngsters dominated the teenage hip hop scene. And around like early 93 or late 92, here comes Mobb Deep with this song called Peer Pressure. That was the first time I ever heard of them. They had a song called Peer Pressure. They had a video of it. And I remember watching BET Rap City, and Peer Pressure came on. I'm like, yo, who is these dudes? I'm like, man, who is these cats trying to sound like the Youngsters? I was like, man, who the hell are these dudes? I was like, man, whatever. Because the Youngsters had songs like Pass the Mic and Cruise Pop, the song they did with Tretch from Naughty by Nature. The Youngsters pretty much dominated. You know, even Gangstar has sampled one of their voices in one of their hit songs. Back then, when a good rap group, when a hardcore good rap group sampled your voice, that meant they was feeling you. That meant you was tight. So if Primo, a DJ like Primo from Gangstar, cut up your voice, that mean you was the shit. So Gangstar had a song called Mass Appeal, and you can hear Primo cutting up. Money's growing like grass with the Mass Appeal. That was the Youngsters. That was the kid Taji from the Youngsters. I believe that was his name, Taji. Money's growing like grass with the Mass Appeal. That was on the song Pass the Mic. So that was pretty much the stamp on the Youngsters. Like, yo, these dudes is hot. Yo, they was popping right now as far as the teenage hip hop scene. So, you know, Mobb Deep comes with Peer Pressure, and I'm like, whatever, man. Like, you know, these dudes is alright. They alright. Then they album Juvenile Hell drops. That was their first album. It was called Juvenile Hell. It was released, I think, in 93. And you know, it was hot on the underground scene, but you know, it wasn't nothing to write home about. You know what I'm saying? It was like, whatever, you know, I'm like, man, whatever, you know, these dudes are alright, man. They ain't all that. Because the Youngsters was dominating. Then Illegal had some tracks too. You know, so, you know, Chi Ali, he had some tracks. It was a bunch of other teenage rappers, you know, one-hit wonder, teenage rap groups, you know, that had a couple hits. You know, so, and leaders of the new school, they, you know, I forgot to mention them, you know, they were teenagers too. And, you know, they were dominating. But Mobb Deeps, I'm like, man, whatever. I'd rather hear leaders of the new school, LONS. You know what I'm saying? I was like, man, Mobb Deep, man, Juvenile Hell, man, whatever. Even though I was a teenager at the time, I was in my mid-teens. I was like, man, whatever. Put on some youngsters. So, fast forward to early 1995. I was at I was getting my hair cut at my homeboy Reggie house, and I heard not the instrumental, the acapella, you know, of some kid rapping. And he was like, yo, I got plans, power movements, get on some rude shit. If I'm living like this, somebody lose it. My man's coming on from doing long ass biz. What up, Kiko? I ain't seen you around since we was kids. And I was like, who is this kid talking about he ain't been around? He ain't seen you since we was kids. I'm like, damn, this dude sound like a kid. Talking about he ain't seen his homeboy since they was kids. It just didn't click. I'm like, but the shit was all right, though. You know what I mean? I'm like, you know, that was all I heard. I didn't hear any music or whatever because it may have been on a mixtape or something. You know what I mean? I remember hearing that acapella verse. Come to find out that was a acapella skit that was on the Infamous. It came on right before, I think, Survival of the Fit. I think. It's been so long. But that was the first time I heard the Infamous Mobb Deep album. Now, my homeboy D, I went over to his house, and he kept on singing, I take a sip off the liquor and drink away the pain. I'm like, he was just singing that part. I'm like, who was that? He was like, I don't know. And then he started spitting, I used to be in love with the girl named E&J. Don't mess with her no more. Now I mess with Tangeray. I'm like, yo, who was that? He didn't know. You know, or he couldn't remember or something. So, because back then we didn't have no Google or nothing. We couldn't type up lyrics to see who possibly sung them or said them or whatever have you, or whatever. You know what I mean? So, everything was word of mouth. So, long story short, I was listening to the radio one day, and I heard the beat to Survival of the Fittest. It was just the instrumental. I was listening to Straight from the Underground with Chris G and Ebby Ebb. And I'm like, yo, that instrumental is hot. You know, they were talking over it, you know, talking about the show. And I'm like, man, this beat is hot. I'm like, who? I'm like, I wonder who that is. I'm like, I'm never going to find out. You know what I mean? Because they didn't never say what instrumentals they were talking over on the radio. You know what I mean? So, whatever. Then in school one day, my homeboy Andre Parsons, he was singing the lyrics to Survival of the Fittest. And I said, yo, who is that? He didn't know. You know, and so my homeboy, one of my homeboys, he was like, that's the Infamous. I'm like, yo, who is the Infamous? And they was like, it's this new rap group. That's all they kept saying was the Infamous. So, you know, I filed that in my memory bank. I said to myself, I'm going to have to check for the Infamous, you know, next time I go to the record store or whatever. You know, like I said, it wasn't no YouTube. So, I was watching The Box one day, and Give Up the Goods come on. The Box was like a video show, a video jukebox that came on regular TV if you had a strong enough signal to catch it. And, you know, I heard Give Up the Goods, and I was like, yo, these dudes is tight. And when it went off, it said Mobb Deep. I'm like, oh, okay, these dudes is tight. I'm going to have to check for that. And Q-Tip was one of my favorite producers. And, you know, I found out later that Q-Tip produced that beat. You know what I mean? So, you know, I'm like, okay, yeah. You know, I didn't even know it was Mobb Deep from Juvenile Hell because people kept saying the Infamous. But anyway, I still didn't know the Infamous from Mobb Deep. You know what I mean? I didn't know they had a new album because they sort of faded away after Juvenile Hell. You know, so I go over to my cousin Tia's house, and she was playing Temperatures Rising. And I'm like, yo, who is that? She said it was the Infamous. She said it was the Infamous Mobb Deep. And I'm like, yo, I've been hearing about these kids. Like, you know, who are they? So I looked at the CD and I'm like, oh, these them cats from Juvenile Hell. And she was like, what's Juvenile Hell? I was like, they had another album called Juvenile Hell. She was like, nah, this is their first album. I said, let me borrow this CD. I borrowed it and I played it to death. I played it to death to the point where it didn't play anymore. When I gave the CD back to her, she was like, yo, you damaged my CD. I was like, my bad, I'll buy you another one. She was complaining, man, because she liked Temperatures Rising. That was like it was like a slow rap song with, you know, with a girl singing the hook. And I couldn't stop playing it. I couldn't stop playing it. And once they came with the Infamous Mobb, once they dropped that album, they blew everybody out the way. They blew everybody out. The youngsters, Crisscross, leaders of the new school, they Illegal, they blew everybody away. Matter of fact, I didn't hear from none of them groups ever again. Well, Busta Rhymes went solo, you know, but y'all know what I mean. They blew everybody out the water when they dropped that Infamous Mobb Deep album. Everybody was playing that, what's the name of that? The Shook Ones, Part 2. Everybody was playing, everywhere I went, everywhere I went, everybody was playing it. They was rapping over the instrumental. I'm like, yo, who did this beat? Come to find out it was Havoc. I'm like, yo, and these dudes were young. You know, they were like 18, 19. I'm only 19, but my mind is older when the shit gets for real. My warm heart turns cold. I'm like, yo. And I was like 15 or 16. I was like 15 at the time. I'm like, yo, these dudes ain't that much older than me. And I'm like, yo, I got to revamp my shit if I want to make it. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, yo, these dudes is up there with Wu-Tang. To me, they were like the modern day version of EPMD. I looked at them as the young version of the 90s version of EPMD. You know, because they was writing and producing their own tracks, just like Eric and Paris Smith, Eric Sermon and Paris Smith. And I'm like, yo, these dudes is what's popping right now. So I had to buy my cousin Tia. I had to replace her CD. So I had when I first bought the Mobb Deep album, I bought two of them. One for me. I bought two CDs. One for me and one for my cousin. Came to $30. It was $30. I remember that. But I went out and bought the 12-inch to Survival of the Fittest, which I still have to this day. Still had that original 12-inch single on vinyl. Still got it to this day. And man, they knocked down some doors with this one because, yo, they really had me believing what they was rapping about. They the first rap group, I mean, Schoolie D was the first rapper that I heard that rapped, and I was wondering if he really lived like that, you know, but Mobb Deep, they had me really thinking, yo, these dudes are some real thugs because some of the shit that they were saying, it sounded real. You know what I mean? It sounded like they was really into that. And they sounded sincere because on the album, there's another skit where Prodigy was like, yo, he was like, all you half-ass niggas with your half-ass rhymes, talk about how much weed you smoke, how much niggas you shot. He was like, when I see you in the street, I'm going to punch you in your face just for living. He was like, I ain't super nigga, I'm a little skinny motherfucker, but it's all about who gets who first. That sounded like some real shit. Because he was like, yeah, I've been in the clubs and the tunnels. He was like, I done used and abused all kind of drugs, so don't mistake me for no wise guy. He was like, man, it's all about, that sounded like some real shit, like some real nigga shit to me. You know what I mean? And I'm from, you know, I live in New York State. You know, they from New York, they from Queens, they from New York City. And to me, they sound like some niggas from the streets of New York. You know, they sounded like some niggas around my way, some thugs around my way that will really get at you. You know, like if you pull the average thug off the street corner and put him in the vocal booth, he'll say what Mobb Deep was saying on that album. You know what I'm saying? You know, because Prodigy was like, yeah, all you niggas rapping about that outer space shit. I was like, yo, these niggas sound 100. You know what I mean? So I couldn't stop playing that Infamous. This is one of my favorite albums of all time. Top 10 easily. This has got to be one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time. You know, you can argue me down or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'm always open for debate. So drop a comment. This album wasn't no joke, man. It wasn't no joke. They had songs on there like Drink Away the Pain, Up North Trip. That was some real shit. I'm just going off the top of the dome. I don't have the album with me. I got it in the house. But if you a hip-hop fan, you must have this in your collection. Download it. Go to Amazon Prime or whatever you got to do. This is a must-have. You know? Mobb Deep. 25 years, baby. 25 years. And it's like after this album, they just kept going. I mean, they dropped Hell on Earth, and then they did some solo shit on the side. Prodigy had HNIC. Yo, R.I.P. to Prodigy. One Love to Havoc. Y'all better cop this album. Add it to your collection. Peace.